This is the 8-9 Combo Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones.
This is the 8-9 Combo. This is the test match post-mortem. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And, mate, we have yet again been just blessed by the rugby gods with two enthralling contests tonight, this morning, depending on where you are, at Twickenham and in Paris. What do we had? 5.5 hours of rugby? What a night, what a morning it's been.
Yeah, what a spectacle. You see sometimes the rugby authorities try to invent some kind of vessel into which to put these things. And so they name brand the microphones, Autumn Nation series, and they try to create some sort of cup that goes back and forth. No one cares about any of that stuff. It's all about the quality of the rugby. It's the fact that we miss the clash of the hemispheres. We are engrossed by it. It's super interesting to see, with the passage of time between the World Cup and now, what have these two teams done to change?
Yes.
And it's fascinating.
Yes, it really is. That's a perfect way of putting it. We are back with our immediate thoughts, covering off these two massive games within the Autumn Nation series. England 20 went down to South Africa 29 at Twickenham. And that was followed by France's patient, very patient 30-29 win over New Zealand in Paris. Two ripping games, mate. Let's get straight into it. We'll start with the 5-word headline where, of course, as we know, the winning headline becomes the pod title. I've got a good one here, but I'm keen to see what you're going to try and beat me with.
I'm counting the words in my brain as I think of it right now. Let's see. The GOAT changes every week.
I don't mind that. You know what's coming here.
I don't.
I'm simply going to say that was the greatest win of all time.
Well, WhatsApp group, you were peppering us with the greatest of everything, the greatest front foot in of all time, the greatest line-out call of all time. It became ridiculous.
It was the greatest sore ribs of all time.
To be fair, and by the way, I think that is the right title. To be fair, I don't think the person that we're referring to, ironically, I don't think he had much of an impact. And if Cam Roygaard had stayed on for the whole game, you would have said that he outplayed him. He outplayed him as long as he was on.
He did. He definitely did. Anton Dupont had a perfectly fine scrum half game.
It was fine, yeah.
I'm sure it will rank somewhere in the top 100 games that he's played. That's the way to put that. But yes, the whole GOAT debate is a bit
in northern Mexico, where I am a lot and eat very good food. There's a beautiful delicacy which is a baby goat, but it's called cabritos, and I'm gonna start calling Antoine Dupont cabrito. It's a baby goat. You still got to show it in these kinds of matches. Where other people, to me, they just stood up more for France. I mean, the French had incredible performances across the park.
And so let's get into that. France, we'll do France, New Zealand first. What worked well for France?
This is one of those times when we're doing an immediate post-pod mortem where I'm literally still processing.
Well, you call it.
It's so interesting how that match. I kept thinking it was a different thing than it was. I suppose what they did best of all was keep pressure. I guess rugby is always a pressure game. It's applying pressure and then not letting your opponent get out of it. And I think they did more of that for longer than New Zealand, but they did it by 1% more.
I used the word patient before, and that's I think the way to describe it. France did enough to win. It wasn't a comprehensive win by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't New Zealand weren't even horrendous. They very nearly won the game and would have been deserving to have done that. But it was a willing contest, two teams that just push each other to the limit, and France just did enough to win. And perhaps the best thing about the win for France is that it wasn't the Dupont show. He was fine. Ramos was excellent. The Leleka back, as I've called him, Pierre Barry was magnificent out in the wing. The French back row was great. Their set piece was really, really strong, but so was New Zealand's. So it was an enthralling contest because it could literally have gone either way 4 or 5 times through that last 20 minutes.
Who was the official man of the match?
I didn't see. I must admit, I had snuck out to make the important coffee of the day.
If I was picking someone, I might have picked Ramos. I felt like he was all action all the time. He has his socks perfectly, mid-shin at all times. He looks unruffled. He doesn't even take 20 seconds on the shot clock, by the way. He just boots the ball. He doesn't really care.
Looks up on the shot clock and he goes, 30 seconds. I better kick it. Yeah. He also looked just annoyed enough that he's playing 10 and not 15. He looked so much happier when he went to the back for the last 15 minutes.
I do think if you're a proper Frenchman, you should always be annoyed. I do also think that the speed quotient of Louis Abilderi, there was a moment where he just outstripped everyone, and it looked like he could have done it for fun. And all match long, there was that danger lurking.
He ran away from Sevu Reece.
Oh, and Sevu Reece was stuck in mud, and it was not even close.
I don't think I've ever uttered those words.
Tane Edbert did it. Sorry, that was perfect. You set me up.
Swing for the fences, my friend. What?
Charles Olivon was good. The French loose trio was good. Although I do very much like Artie Savia playing 7, and but there were just moments like Wallace Atiti getting the line-out ball and then firing it down at the bottom of Cortez Ratama's shoes. Just ridiculous things. The weird referee special now where it's a lottery where suddenly I'll use a 2-second, 5-second call out of nowhere, but nowhere else in the match.
There was a rough call on Ratama. He hadn't been on long either, and Mr. Amish Kelly says to him, use it. The ball's still in front of two All Blacks in the ruck. And then he's calling 2, as in you've got 2 seconds to walk, where he's still trying to dig it out. Like there was just no way that ball was out the ruck and there for him to use, and he got pinged for it. And
Rico Ronnie didn't know exactly if the ball was secure, so he had his hand placed on it really tight. And Cortez had to actually convince his own teammate that the ball was safe, which it's very difficult to do while 80,000 people are screaming and singing the anthem. Anthem Wankery was back. I would say also no one does night rugby lead up like the French. Wow. Wasn't that some spectacle?
I mean, you had and I actually wish the broadcasters took the end on shot more, because there was that magnificent end on shot where the All Blacks were doing their haka, but they were almost in shadow.
Yes.
The French team were shoulder to shoulder, lit up, and then behind the All Blacks on the stadium, you had the tricolour in lights.
It was cinema. It was cinema.
We're going to let you have your moment, but you're not the ones in the limelight here. It was
it was cinema, as our friend Ringo Rian Lowe put it. This is theatre. And just so beautiful. Yeah, the way they set up the scenes. They can never find the scene of a knock on by a French player, but man, they can find beautiful cinematography.
You know who has the easiest job for a night test match in Paris? The singer of the French anthem. Knocks out the first. He does 3.5 lines.
Take over.
He just steps down, puts down the mic. Thanks very much. That'll be €2,000. Thank you.
Yeah, I said it's actually one of those games where you kind of need to. I mean, I like this format's beautiful. It's breathless, thoughtless. We just cut off the cuff, but it's almost like a game I'd have to sort of rip back into and see how did it get to there.
Where did it actually spin?
What's the sport called fencing, where there's parries and thrusts, and the two people kind of go back. It looked like that to me, and I didn't really know. An hour in, I was just thinking to myself, well, I have no idea what's going to happen next. Really, I have zero idea. And whatever is going to happen, it's going to be even better than that. And sure enough, I thought Damien McKenzie came on, played manfully. The way he got back to track back for that ball and scoop it up. I thought that was a try for sure, and then he comes back and rescues it. It felt a little bit maybe in the end that New Zealand had too many situations where one player, like an Artie Surveyor, a Bowden Barrett, and maybe this is the story of their in the last 2 years, is then that one person has to rescue the team. And they played better. The best patches of the game where they were just playing like a unit. I mean, that scrum looked good. Everyone was firing.
Yeah. If there's and this segues nicely into what didn't work so well for New Zealand. Perhaps it's that maybe they're losing the ability for one player to change the game now. I mean, we haven't necessarily seen that.
The game has progressed beyond that now. Goats are overrated now. Like you can have your goat, and I'll have my billy goat, and you'll have your tank, and I'll have my rhinoceros. Every team has 6 or 7 crazy talents that on their day can mismatch with you. And like Charles Olivon in another era, Charles Olivon would be like one of the greatest players ever. Absolutely. But he's just another guy now because there's every team's got an Olivon.
Yeah. And so maybe that's what I'm getting at is that when the All Blacks would dearly love someone to
Christian Cullen,
yes. They would love someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck, and there just isn't someone there at the moment. It's again, I don't think I've had that conscious thought about New Zealand, but I think we saw it there tonight. That when they really needed someone to do something, it just wasn't quite there.
I mean, Will Jordan has some of those qualities, but against a French system,
I think he was well contained tonight.
They took care of him, right? They knew how to take care of him. He shows up more against a team like Ireland that doesn't have flat line speed. But the French have that really good track back stuff, and they can lecker back you because they just keep coming back. I would say one of the surprise performers for Australian listeners and viewers is Manny Miafu, because he might have missed some of that maturation, but he has come along in leaps and bounds. Yeah. He's like a better Will Skelton.
It's not a bad shout, and he was very, very good. Yeah, no doubt about that. England, South Africa.
Before we use those, I think someone who did something good better than another person is the coaching. The French coaches adjusted better at oranges than the All Blacks, and I think this is a continuing theme for the All Blacks. Is they seem to be outplayed by adjustments. Because they're too much like, let's just do everything we were doing better instead of let's do something different. Flamand was interviewed post-match, and he was talking about how they specifically changed their line-out structure. They changed tactics, and they literally and Saul Gaultier was the guy delivering those messages in the change room himself. And
because he's often not. Yeah,
he was getting right in there, and he was saying, we're going to do this. And I saw, this is why I want to watch it again almost, because I think the French put a different structure on the field in the second half. So,
and actually, that's not a bad point, because we're through the Rugby Championship. We've been asking a few questions about the way New Zealand have used their bench, but for the first 3 weeks of this series in November, we've actually been praising them. They've used the bench very well. Tonight, maybe I feel like they slipped back to how they were through. They just sort of trickled replacements on. There didn't seem to be any pattern or obvious plan for it. It was like, all right, you go on. And
it might have been because of injuries as well. Yeah, there was a bit of I guess with Geordie going off.
They lost Finau obviously very early.
Ooh, that was terrible. And it was I hope that young man's okay. He looked like he was in big trouble. Lakai, who came on for him, right, was outstanding though. I mean,
it was very good.
He was powerful in the tackle.
Yeah, looks very good. Just when you think someone's getting ready for it to have a massive career, then along comes Wallace Satiti and Peter Lakai, and okay, that guy's 10 minutes ago. Yeah, England, South Africa, mate. That was a really, really interesting game. I'm still of the opinion a couple of hours later, I think 29-20 doesn't highlight how in control of that game South Africa were. Like there was, even when England got the lead back early on the second half, 52
20,
minutes. They got back to 20 to 19.
19,
Never felt like South Africa were going to lose that game from kickoff.
No, I didn't feel like we would lose. There was one moment, I think it was, it was the kind of game that 4 or 5 years ago Springboks might have managed to lose because there were a lot of things that kind of went strangely. But I think composure is the greatest strength of this current Springbok team. Plus, on the given night, on any night, someone else steps up. So this one goes down, this one steps up, and it doesn't really matter. And the fact that they staged this 6-day turnaround and they rested their packs by doing a big shift, it did seem to tell at the end. Once again, the bench dictated the result. And this is the same old, but it's a different bench, different people on the bench. So it's I read a few things post-match from the English press. Love our friend Charlie Morgan. He pointed out that there were just the 4 tries that were scored. So that's 8 tries against 2 so far in this tour. The Springboks have had against Scotland and England. It was these moments where it was very clinical. Yes, it was a bit soft by England, but also they just took the try really well. Even the double charge down try. When do you see that very often? They were calm. Peter Steff didn't overrun the ball. He didn't try to do something crazy. He let the ball bounce. He scored it calmly. I also read that it was the most painful loss for England in some time. And I'm not sure all the reasons why. I just think the two sides kind of really hate losing to each other. It's really fun to see them cry. But it was a very funny old match. The referee blew the whistle into smithereens, had to get a new whistle at halftime. And
then he buggered that one up too.
And so there was a lot of stuff to react to. And I just think that the Bok players are so mature now at handling stuff, not getting too upset. Just keep playing, plugging away. And England still has this thing where they self-destruct. And I'm sure it's doing their heads in right now because they've got plenty of talent. They have a really hard pack. They just see in the final 20, 15 minutes, they do weird stuff.
So I feel like so Handré Pollard comes on around about the same time that England that Marcus Smith kicked that penalty and England retook the lead, 20 points to 19.
2019,
Yeah, and then I feel like when Pollard came on, it was sort of like, guys, it's all right. We've got this. And then he has that kick a penalty goal himself, which bounces on the crossbar and then
of course it goes over.
And of course it goes over.
If Libbok had hit that, it would have bounced off, like unlucky. And then if it's Handré,
it would have bounced into an England winger's hands who would have ran 90 meters and scored.
And then Pollard does that shit-eating thing where he acts like he meant to do that. He's like, oh yeah, thanks, guys.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he hits the crossbar, he picks his tee up and he runs back, he flicks the tee off and he's running back to the team and he's going, see, I told you, we've got this. It's going to be fine. And it just kind of...
We all knew a guy in school just like that. And you would never admit that it was like just a botch. He didn't put enough mustard on it.
Even at reunions 20 years later. No, I absolutely meant that. Yeah.
He also played, so Pollard played beyond that. He took a lot of high balls. He took some pressure off the Lekkerbacks who were getting a bit abused by Freddie Stewart and Freeman, bigger bodies. But
Stewart was really good, wasn't he?
It was a fascinating chess match because Stewart was also done in as a big battleship having too long a turning radius by Colby a few times and Kirkley Arnson. So the chess match was Borthwick went upsized to handle the new no escort rules and try to pick on the Boks. The Boks banked on the fact that there's going to be more room for these cross kicks. And if you put Colby in space, not really in space, any kind of area where they
downsized.
Stewart's going to fall. He actually fell on his face. Like it was very embarrassing. He was in the poster where he falls on his face.
He also threw a massive forward pass into what was the no try for Henry Slade in the end that strangely wasn't even looked at. And maybe
that was a weird passage.
Maybe it wasn't looked at because they were already going back for the net roll. I don't know, but
Fassi's throw
pass to Arnson,
Arnson was fine. It's like we see that all the time in rugby, and it seemed obvious that it was obviously they're motoring, so it's going to go forward in that sense, but it wasn't back. It wasn't forward out of the hands. I just thought that it's one of those age-old things. Once the referee starts to blow a whistle, it's kind of like he's made a rod for his own back, because then he has to whistle everything that looks like that thing.
There was a moment late, England down 29-20. They kicked for the corner. They didn't take the three. There was still probably time to get possession back, but they kicked for the corner and then buggered up the line out. And I thought, oh, that pretty much sums up your night. You're there in that contest, but when it really counted, you just weren't.
Yeah, I thought in all three matches, the big ones that I watched this weekend, there was a lot of critical choices about corner or taking the three. There's no perfect answer. Like in every case, no matter what you do, you can look at it later. But I do think I just think England start to speed up in the final 20, when it's 15 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go. They get a little bit frantic. And that's just something the Bucks are not doing nowadays. As long as you have a guy like Pollard on or the right number 9. By the way, it was very interesting to see a very rare thing, which is almost like a Tate McDermott special, where Grant Williams picks the ball up at the base and just runs and scores a try.
That was a really good try.
Freddie Stewart. The forwards are filling it air. And I thought, it is kind of cool to have a quick 9.
It was a really good try. And there wasn't a lot of space for him to exploit, but exploit it he did. So,
we had a great 8-9 combo this week, which was Cam Roygaard taking the ball from Gregory Aldridge. Thank you. Try assist.
Yeah.
Very rare try assist of an 8 and 9 from a different team.
Not all 8-9 combos are garden variety. No, that's very true.
Involuntary combo.
Yeah. Who learned what from these two games? England next week have, where's my draw? England are done now, aren't they? England are done. South Africa are done. New Zealand play Italy. Oh no, sorry. South Africa play Wales next week.
We play Wales, yeah. What do we learn? I mean,
England have Japan.
I think Razor Robertson learned who his top number 9 is. I think his starting halfback is clear, and there had been a little bit of a Ratama Roygaard, but I think the distance between them was kind of established, because that's one good thing about playing the French in Paris is it sort of like amps up all the pressure. So you see everything you really want to see about a player.
Yeah.
I do think the shape, this is going to sound weird because they lost, but I thought the shape of Artie Savea at 7 looked better with Wallace Atiti at 8. And then what fell down on the experimental test was, of course, your blind side gets injured right away. So it kind of throws off things. But I still think that looked good. I don't think that's why the All Blacks lost. I think the All Blacks lost in the end because they couldn't handle, this is the age-old, been going on for 5-6 years now. They couldn't handle the rush D and the Sean Edwards, the rush D before the rush D. It really rattled them.
France varied their defensive speed through the game too. Mm-hmm. They upped it when they needed to. They held back when they needed to.
Fiku is a maestro. I mean, he just knows how to lag and gives you a little bit of a feint. He's really good at that.
In much the same, like he's the driving force for it. Much the same way, Lawrence is for England. Much the same way Jesse Creel is for South Africa. Lenny Tau for Australia to a degree. So, it's going to be an interesting series of matches next week.
Just going back to Ireland, Argentina, in a really weird reference, I think Ireland learned that they need to have a lot of rucks for their style to work. I think between England and South Africa, I think England has to play a more territorially based game. They just have to. They have to camp out. They looked really good when they got on the red zone and worked the red zone, but they just didn't get in there enough.
They got scared to kick because of 3 charge downs in the first 10 minutes.
I put a question out to Russ Fetti and up to Johnny, and I wonder if they've answered me yet. But is that the most touched ball on kicks? Like, either tipped, charged down fully, or back to the way? It was ridiculous.
Marnie Libok got a touch on a kick, like just literally sticking a hand up, and he got a touch on a kick at one point. So
the calibration was either really set too low, or this new thing where you couldn't put a guard in front of you was really working. But Ibn Etzebeth was eating him up. In the Telegraph, they said, he turned Jack van Poortvliet into his bunny. and I thought it was a bit harsh.
When you had Austin Healy in commentary trying to make arguments that Etzebeth was offside, and he was talking, he's clearly offside there. It would be millimeters at best. And he was trying to make it sound like he was a meter offside. Yeah,
he was where every other player is when they do that charge down. It's just like when you're having to rely on that argument, and it's tenuous at best. It's not a very strong argument. You got any final thoughts on these games we've seen? I mean, I just gotta say, of all the tries that I watched this weekend, my favorite one definitely was the one where Ibn charged down Jack from Portfleet. Marcus Smith scoops it up and gets charged down.
And then gets charged down.
And then it just rolls perfectly. It's like one of those on the green. It kind of goes to fringe and it stays on the green. And then Peter Stiff just slides and it scores. I thought, that is so demoralizing if you're playing for England.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll give our thoughts on Wales, Australia, which is Sunday afternoon in Cardiff. We'll give our thoughts on that in our weekly episode 41 or 42, whatever we're up to, which will be out obviously in the next day or two. But that is a wrap then on the Test match post-mortem, the second week of the Northern Spring Autumn Series tours. And we have still got a third big weekend of international rugby coming up again next weekend, which I'm looking forward to.
Sorry, All Blacks fans. I really wanted the All Blacks to win. I just want to confess that and say that up front. I really, really wanted you to win.
But is that more because you just didn't want the French to win?
No, I like the All Blacks. I really liked watching Cam Roygaard play. He's really interesting. Yeah. I was thinking what ifs in my head. Like, what if Cam Roygaard hadn't got injured in the World Cup? What if Malcolm Marx hadn't got injured?
Yeah,
would it have even been a better All Black Springbok final, and we would have just really smashed Ireland and French. Yeah, I do want that Southern Hemisphere domination.
The big winner tonight in France, no doubt, was the Ultrad people. Both jerseys covered. There was Ultrad signage up the stairs
Ultrad Bowl
into the start front. Yeah, I think it might have been. I'm not sure. Anyway, tell us what you think right here on the 8-9 Combo YouTube channel, and you can hit the combo up on all the socials. You can tell Harry and I what you think in our usual places as well. And we are dabbling and we are ramping things up a bit on Blue Sky as well, including the 8-9 Combo. You'll find it on Blue Sky if you're heading that direction. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and that you're following the pod platforms wherever you tune in, and make sure you've got your notifications turned on as well. This is the Test match post-mortem for the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we'll be back in your ears with New South Wales Waratahs coach Dan McKellar.
Cool. Come play with us.
This is the 8-9 Combo podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones.